Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining our video series webinar on employee retention. This is part two of improving the employee retention in the workplace. The first one was amazing, just really timely. Where our goal is to try to provide those that attend timely topics for their business and their clients. And this has been a very exciting topic. I've learned a lot, take a lot of notes. So I would just encourage you to have a pad and pencil or an iPad or whatnot, take a lot of great notes. There's going to be some really meaty and weighty information given. So thank you for joining us. So let's move on to our webinar series. May will be our next webinar, and it will be on cybersecurity. Again, another hot topic on how to help businesses with cybersecurity. And we'll have a cybersecurity expert from India, direct from India, Bangalore, which is the Silicon Valley. And he will be just going over some of the nuts and bolts and the whys and the where. And then in June, we'll talk about the Cal Savers law that really applies for almost virtually every employer in California. Next slide. And then again, save your date, May 31st, cybersecurity for businesses. Right now, because of the Bangalore time, we're not sure if we'll make this in the morning, which will be a morning series, or the afternoon. If it's in the mornings, it will be from 10 to 12. It will be 1 hour from 11 to 12 or 1 to 2. So we'll let you know on that. Okay. If you've missed any of these series, any of these webinars, or just want to look at library YouTube page, so just look in your YouTube page, and this along with if you missed part one of this series, will be there, and this will be recorded and should be available tomorrow. Yeah, great. Today agenda, I'm your host, going to have presented Carmen Torres and Gabriela Romero on today's agenda. Great speakers. I want to also acknowledge Mei Li for helping us out. Thank you, Mei Li. She's always puts everything together here that we can be able to communicate with everyone here. Also, the Q&A, real important. If you want to jot that number down on the bottom, 323-207-5850. If you have any questions, that will be a number that you can text, and we will then have that available for their Q&A session, which will be at the end of the presentation. Risco Insurance, most of you know, as we were the host of this webinar series. Our webinar series have started since 2009, way back when we just felt that it was a real need to keep our clients informed with the ever-changing law, especially here in California. Next slide. And now we are part of the Endzone family, so we're happy to have them on board, and so we have merged, and now I think we're better and more equipped to have a broader audience, and we're looking forward to this series expanding and bringing in new components. So we're actually very excited about that new merger with Endzone. And for those Endzone family that's part of us, hello, glad you're on board with us today. Let's go to the next. Okay, Human Capital is a corporation that I have that actually does the productions. We do loss prevention, safety management, injury management, litigation prevention, and claims management. Okay, let's go to the next one. Also, one of our partners, Southern California Corporate Growth Partners. For anybody that's looking for finance, how to grow their business and set up, or maybe setting up a new corporation, Southern California Corporate Growth Partners is a nonprofit entity that does that for businesses here in Southern California. Well, I think California in all, but they're involved in education, civic, financial, and they have global partners. So they're very, very well positioned to help businesses in California, especially in Southern California, with all their products and services. Let's go to the next. I quote that I put a lot. It says, business is not about money. Business is about people. And being in business myself for over 35 years, it took me a while to understand that concept. You know, we start off with the idea, of course, we're in business to make money and we have to turn a profit, but that has to be a component, but that can't be the core. If it's a core of your business, then I don't think you'll ever have a real successful business. I had a meeting with a client yesterday. We were talking about, you don't want to be number one in your business and have a horrible reputation among your employers. At the end of the day, when you go to this, when you depart the earth and go to your grave, the last thing you want to know is that, or hear is, wow, yeah, they were number one, but they had no compassion. There was no kindness. There was, no empathy for their workforce. And that's really, I think a winning company is the one that cares for their people and cares for people in general. This is a proverb, a Jewish proverb by King Solomon, one of the wisest men that ever lived. And we can always learn by wise men. And he said this: know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever. And does the crown endure for all generations? A lot of wisdom in that, and it's pretty deep. Understand your flocks as the workforce and give attention to them, because things pass away. So again, it was more of what I mentioned earlier. I thought I'd share before we start something interesting that you might want to keep in mind as you hear this series and understand. Most economic experts believe that we're going to enter a recession. This article that I pulled out just came out today, and it's the economy shrank by 1.4% in the first quarter, which is not a good sign. So we believe, most experts believe, that we're going to enter a recession, and that's that dreaded R word. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. I think in certain respects, some of this mass exodus that we're seeing, as our speakers are going to talk about the Great Recession, we're going to see that confidence of that employee looking at greener pastures in other places. That's going to diminish, because I think companies are going to start looking at their bottom line and looking at forecasting. And I think the job market is going to become a lot more tougher in the next 6 months. So again, the good sign is that I think you're not going to see as much moving around. The bad side is that you're going to see it's going to be more challenging to make that bottom line. But this is something to keep in mind as you look forward in the year. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to get into employee retention. Very excited about that. Carmen Torres is our featured speaker today, and Carmen's been with us, and she does a magnificent job. She is the owner and chief specialist for My HR Specialist. There's a QR code. If you want more information, you can click into, I tested it, it works, Carmen, looks great. It'll take it right into her website, and her phone number, her contact is there. Carmen has worked with many of our clients and very successfully manages many clients of different sizes. So we're very happy to have Carmen on board today. And Gabriela Romer, she has a master's in psychology, and she is focused on today is industrial psychology. She did a great job on section 1 on our first webinar on this, the first series, and look forward to them working together. Next slide. And with that, I want to introduce Gabriela Romer to introduce this series.
Yes, thank you, Javier, and good morning to all of you that have joined us. Like Javier mentioned, Carmen and myself are really excited to continue this two-part series on improving employee retention. Like Javier mentioned, I have a master's in psychology and I'm clinically licensed in California, and together with Carmen, we're really going to focus this part two on giving you specific strategies that you can implement in your business to improve your employee retention and then reduce the risk of attrition, especially during this critical time of the Great Recession. So next slide. So before we go ahead and jump into this part two, I wanted just to quickly review a little bit of part one for those that maybe didn't get a chance to participate with us last month. So really what we focused on was giving you guys the information and the facts about what's going on right now in the workforce. So obviously one of the big topics was the Great Resignation, and just the fact that right now we are at this kind of pivotal time where a significant number of employees have resigned en masse all around the same 1 to 2 year period, kind of following the pandemic, which has greatly impacted a significant number of different industries. So we talked a little bit about, what caused this shift. I think kind of what pushed it forward was the pandemic, but really, kind of before that, we had some cultural shifts that were kind of already causing this kind of perfect storm. And with that, we have, a new younger generation that has taken over the workforce, and that's the millennials. And we did spend a lot of time talking about the millennials and kind of, having them taking over the workforce and what that means as they, come in, bringing in new expectations, new values, and just kind of a new way of working. So we talked a lot about that. And then we also talked about how just the Great Resignation, how that has impacted the BIPOC community. And, really what we highlighted was that, the Hispanic, Latino, and also African-American and Black communities are really kind of leading this shift and really leading the resignation, with higher numbers of leaving their jobs, looking for new careers, looking for other places to work. So we really wanted to give you guys all of that information. And with that being said, now we kind of want to get into the part two of, okay, now we know what's going on. So what can we do to lower our risk of having this impact our communities and our businesses? So let's go ahead and jump into the next slide. So Carmen and I have kind of developed 4 strategies that we believe will really help you retain employees specifically during this big shift that we're happening right now. These 4 specific kind of goals for your company come from actual studies and polls that have been conducted in the last 2 years with these employees that have resigned. They have looked at, what are the reasons people are resigning? What about a company, are people disliking and wanting to look somewhere else? So really the companies that have been hit the hardest by the resignation, we're lacking these 4 things. And so these are the 4 things that we really want to focus on. So number 1 is ensuring that your employees, that their work matters, knowing that they're valued and knowing, and they want to feel seen, and they want to know that what they're contributing is actually important to not only the employer, but the company as a whole. Another really good goal is establishing a strong corporate culture. As talked about in the part one, a toxic culture was by far the #1 reason why people left in the last 2 years. So really want to encourage you, you guys to get some things, some really good pointers in there on how to create a good, strong, healthy corporate culture. Building and strengthening employee relationships, making sure that, you know, people are working well together, connecting outside of just work, and really kind of building a bond that's really important for the younger generations, specifically the millennials. And then offering job flexibility and work-life balance. I think this has been a huge hit since, you know, COVID. A lot of companies have been forced to kind of figure out how to do this. And in that, a lot of employees have realized, hey, this really works for me. I really like this. And actually, I'm more productive with this kind of lifestyle. So we'll go ahead and jump into those. Next slide. So let's start off with the first strategy, ensuring your employees know that their work matters. So why is this even important? Before we talk about every strategy, we're going to discuss why is this important? And then Carmen's going to kind of follow up with how you can actually meet these goals and implement these strategies. So people really need to see how their work contributes to a company's success. That is important for a person that is working, you know, 8+ hours a day, spending the majority of their time, you know, at work. They want to know that they're not wasting their time. They want to know that what they're doing counts, it's measurable, and it's actually valued, and it's actually contributing to the success of a company. This is especially important to millennials. We talked a lot about their values in the last presentation, a lot about their expectations, and really what's important to them is just to have a greater sense of purpose in the work that they do. They're not money chasing, they're not wage chasing anymore. That's not their #1. They want to know that what they're doing is actually making a difference. And at the end of the day, when employees feel acknowledged, it results in loyal, dedicated, and committed employees. And at the end of the day, I think that's what everyone wants, right? You want people that, you know, are dedicated to your company, to your goals, to your values, and to providing, you know, excellent service. And so knowing that, you know, what they're contributing is important is going to motivate them to really represent you the way you want to be represented to your clients. And then we'll go ahead and have Carmen kind of talk about how you can do this. Next slide.
Great, thank you, Gabi. And so let's just imagine for a moment, you know, let's imagine a job where your work isn't being appreciated, your effort goes unnoticed, and feeling like you could be replaced at any moment. That's not exactly the kind of place that you'd want to stay at for a very long time, right? So as leaders, one of your most important responsibilities is to make your employees feel truly valued, letting them know that without them, your company, your department, and perhaps even you would be worse off. So let's review the 4 simple ways to make your employees feel valued. The first one is be intentional with everyday conversations. Employees and managers alike, they're often ingrained with the idea that everyone is replaceable. What I have found is that a big part of feeling valued occurs when employees are aware that they do add something to the company that no one else can. So to effectively convey this, think about how you approach everyday conversations with your team. When you assign a task, for example, go beyond the basic. Instead of a simple request like, here's the contact information for your next design client, then state why you truly value someone's work. And perhaps you can say something like, you know, you did a really great job designing that website last week. We have a new client who seems pretty picky. And since your work is so detailed, I think you're the best person for this next job. That really supports, you know, that you trust them, right? So as you start giving people more challenging work and clearly acknowledging what you're doing and why it's important, that's going to support you with this next process. So perhaps you've been training customer service reps or a restaurant server. And in a situation like that, you might be able to say something like, You really nailed that 6-person dining reservation last week. So I think you're ready to handle a 10-person reservation this week. So again, the more you recognize your employees with the specific contributions, the more irreplaceable they'll feel and the more committed they will be. And then show them that others need them too, and that others, see what they're doing. And sometimes, recognizing or recognitions by their direct managers, I mean, yes, they're just, they can become a routine. So instead, what you want to do is let them know when you are receiving feedback from others. This will make a big difference. Let them know when your clients, coworkers, or even vendors send you an email, or when they leave a review to share how amazing your employee was with them and what an amazing experience they had. For example, even an employee might be able to tell you, Marie helped me with that product that I needed yesterday. She's so great. Share that. Let the employee know. Let them know, whether it's in private, like in a one-on-one conversation, or send them a quick email, leave them a little note on their desk, or in public. You could do this during one of your regular team meetings, so that other employees can also see that they're being recognized, and it's something people want to applaud others on. And then challenging your team. We all know every job comes with less than glamorous responsibilities, right? But it's important to balance that out, balance out the grunt work with challenging assignments. So when you're only giving repetitive tasks, or tasks that maybe might seem undesired or perhaps even beneath someone's skill levels, then you're conveying that you don't really need his or her specific individual needs. So on the other hand, when you assign an employee a challenge or a challenging task, then you're actually putting trust in them to see it through. And what you're saying is, I know you're capable of this, and I trust you to do a great job. So find your ways to challenge your employees. You might be developing a new project specifically for their talents. Ask them, what skills do you have that perhaps are being underutilized? And some employees are great at training new hires. So giving people this responsibility conveys that you not only think they're doing a good job in their everyday work, but that you want incoming employees to develop their same habits, skills, and attitude. That's very important. And recognize them as individuals. This definitely boosts morale. And it's great to do something for the entire team, like catering lunch, ordering pizza, randomly bringing donuts, right? We all do that. But sometimes you need to go out of your way to recognize them individually, because, sometimes a slice of pizza, it's just not going to cut it. So make true individual, or pardon me, make individual employees feel valued. It's okay to single them out and reward them. Just, be fair all along the way. So for example, if an employee has gone above and beyond with a specific project, perhaps let them skip out on a day of work and join you at a company event, or even something as simple as a small gesture, like allowing an employee to leave an hour or two early on a Friday afternoon because they just did an exceptional job that week. So of course, you don't want to ostracize the rest of your team, right? And you certainly don't want to play favorites, but it is important to pay attention and actively look for opportunities to reward all of the team members on your team. So that is individually recognizing your employees for the specific achievements will definitely spell out loud and clear that they do make a difference to you and to your company. Thank you. Go ahead, Gabi.
Yes, that was awesome. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so along with that is our next kind of goal would be establishing a strong corporate culture. So corporate culture is a much more reliable predictor of industry adjusted attrition than how employees assess their compensation. So basically what that means is that employees are much more likely to quit and to look for other jobs at places where the culture is not as strong. When you look at companies that have a stronger culture, their rates of attrition are much lower. And this is as compared to compensation. So compensation isn't the highest predictor anymore. Now it's culture. So, we put in this, this image on the right that kind of goes with one of the studies that I referenced several times in the part one regarding kind of the top 5 reasons why people were leaving their jobs. Toxic culture was number 1. So when they did this specific study, they looked at a couple of companies that are within the same industry and compared them their rates of attrition during the Great Resignation, which was 2000, 2001, and even now 2022. And looking at them, the companies on the left of this graph, which is the light blue color, all of them are very well known to have really good, strong corporate cultures as described by their employees. When you compare them to the companies on the right, which is the dark blue, they're companies within the same industry, but their culture is not as strong as the other ones. And they have a lot more complaints and kind of a lot more issues that have been pointed out by their employees. Now, when we look at them together and look of the rate of attrition in the last couple of years, you can see that the companies that have the much stronger culture were much less impacted by the Great Resignation. And I think that's telling. And I think that that is super important information for us to utilize. So next slide. So with that being said, I'm talking about this, the toxic work culture that we kind of mentioned as being the number 1 reason why people have been leaving their jobs in the last 2 years. A toxic work culture, obviously it affects the employees, and how does that happen? Well, when you have a toxic atmosphere, you have an increased level of stress, burnout, mental health issues, medical issues, all of which your employees will be experiencing. And when we look at work-related stress, there's been studies out there that interview, these employees that are experiencing that and kind of seeing, okay, well, if you have work-related stress, that's so significant, how is that impacting you? And it's impacting them cognitively, emotionally, physically, and that all coupled together is going to cause a lot of issues for them, and not only for your employee, but also for your company as a whole. So if you have a toxic environment, you're going to have several, if not many, employees that are experiencing these kind of symptoms. If you have, a large business that has a lot of burnt out employees, that you're going to have a high cost of maintaining that toxic work culture. Clearly, you're going to have higher attrition rates, larger number of turnover. When they leave, people talk, people have a tendency, there's always those kind of polls out there that show that people are more likely to kind of post and talk about negative things than positive things. So you best believe that, if someone is leaving a place in a really negative light and note, they're going to talk about it and put it out there, which can, tarnish your brand and your company. You're going to have disengaged and less productive employees. And, if you're having, any kind of ethical, issues or any, kind of illegal activity in which, is a component of a toxic culture, that brings legal liabilities to you. So not only is a toxic culture affecting the employees that are in that company, but it's really affecting the company as a whole. Next slide. So Carmen's going to go ahead and share about what we can do to avoid a toxic, work culture and really create a strong, healthy work culture for your employees. Carmen?
Thanks, Gabi. And with that being said, exactly what the question she asked was, the truth is that the answer is different for everyone. First of all, you must be willing to explore many ideas to improve workplace culture. You see, there are different types of workplace culture, things from informal and clan culture to customer focus culture, hierarchy culture to market driven and purpose driven culture. So we're going to review 4 powerful practices that are sure to improve everyday workplace culture, regardless of the type of company that you are. And the first one is connect people to a purpose, right? Connecting employees to a purpose is super powerful. It's a way to really tells your employees like what the organization is doing. It's known as the organization's reason for being. Without the sense of purpose, it's almost impossible to identify the things that you want to do, like make an impact, help others, or change the world, right? Everybody wants to change the world. So data shows that millennial and Gen Z workers are more likely to work for and stay with the companies who have this clearly defined. So I encourage you to use the hiring practice to share your purpose with the candidates and ask them how they can contribute to that purpose. It only makes sense that the employees who will be most committed to working for your company long-term are those who identify with your core beliefs. So connecting both current and potential employees to your organization's purpose is critical. It's a critical step in improving this culture. And then open up with transparency and communications. We're finding that companies are moving toward a more of a team approach to leadership, one that includes more transparency and feedback. This is a space where all employees are part of the conversation towards change. And a team approach allows leaders and employees to communicate more openly with each other, to breed more trust throughout the organization. And openness leads to collaboration, mentorship, and inspiration. What I found that particularly with some of my clients is that during the early months of COVID-19, we learned that transparency was critical. Several surveys found that even when jobs were on the line and bad news had to be delivered, those organizations who were transparent and clear had more engaged and positive employees. So in one situation, for example, a client notified her team on a Thursday morning that she had no other choice but to shut her doors until further notice because she was not considered an essential business. But because of the openness and the vulnerability that she shared with her team, it empowered them to come up with a solution. In fact, they all packed up and were in business Friday morning from the comfort of their kitchen tables, their living rooms, and their bedrooms. On the other hand, we find that organizations who held back and failed to communicate and be transparent, their culture really was impacted by it. And in fact, they lost many good employees because they did not know where they stand. So give your teams the autonomy they seek. This is the third one. And giving team members this kind of self-governing power of autonomy can be very rewarding for both your business and the employee. So rather than micromanaging your team, like for example, asking where they are with a particular project when the deadline has already been established, or setting goals for them instead of with them, or checking, maybe you work at a restaurant and checking forks for cleanliness. So instead, invite them to create those goals with you. Let them be a part of that process, to set the standards for the type of experience that they'd like your customers to walk away with. That's very, very empowering. Teams don't need to be told what to do. What they're really looking for right now is guidance. They're looking for good leaders because good leaders inspire, mentor, they trust, and they connect with their team. So they treat and get to know their team members as people, just like Javier mentioned in one of the first slides, right? And don't be surprised when you see great work from your teams as a result of feeling trusted by you. And then number 4 would be to schedule regular and meaningful one-to-ones. Excuse me. The final powerful practice to improving culture in the workplace is by having periodic conversations between employees and their leaders. This is what they're looking for. One-on-ones are very effective when they are focused, when they are regularly scheduled, and when they allow both parties to speak openly. The outcomes of these meetings can result in motivated employees with higher morale, engagement, and productivity. So if you are currently scheduling these, say, every 30 days, perhaps increase the frequency to twice per month, and maybe even weekly if you have a remote workforce. But a couple of things to keep in mind, I want to give you these tips. Honor the time that you schedule for this meeting with your team member. Don't reschedule. When you reschedule, employees feel like you don't care and like they're not important enough to be on your calendar. Keep that in mind the next time you have to reschedule something. And ask your employees how they feel about their role, about their workload, and if there are any areas that they might need help with. When properly done, they do lead to a decreased employee burnout, greater engagement, and a strong sense of leadership. Go ahead, Gabi.
Thank you, Carmen. Next slide. So the next goal and strategy that we really wanted to share with you guys is building and strengthening employee links with team activities. Strong employee relations can create higher satisfaction, more productive employees, and a motivated workplace. So I think naturally when, employees are connecting with each other, they have good relationships, positive interactions with each other, they're going to have better communication. They're going to be, have that, open dialogue. And, when you work at a place where you enjoy the people that you work with and have, strong relationships with them, you're motivated to go to work. It's not such a bad thing. You enjoy the people that you have to interact with and, kind of problem solve with. And when kind of everyone's acts and works as a team, there's just more buy-in to the company as a whole. So buy-in with, goals and kind of the values and just kind of the overarching ideas that the company, wants, they're more likely to kind of follow through with that if they feel like everyone's kind of in it and everyone's working as a team. And just ultimately, there's a higher sense of community. We talked a lot about, kind of the values of some of these younger generations, and they don't want to just go in, do their job and leave. They want a sense of community at where they're working. So not only, a value in what they're doing, but they also want to cultivate relationships with, their not just the employees that are around them, their coworkers, but also their supervisors. So that's, that's really important for them. And Carmen's going to share what specifically you can do to kind of foster these relationships in between your employees. Carmen?
Yes, so 5-minute team bonding activities. There are so many team bonding activities that can easily be found with a simple online search. Reach out to us if you need any specific ideas on those. But I think one of the things that I really want to touch on this specific item is that just keep in mind that if your team is new to these type of activities, you should start off slow and easy. Remember to notify your team members that an interactive activity will be taking place, because while your extroverts will be super excited to, get away from the desk and do something fun and exciting, remember that your introverts will require some notice and a schedule of events to prepare themselves to be amongst a group, sharing, and so just keep that in mind. The other thing would be to invite your employees to host an activity. We have several of our clients who are bringing their own practices to the workplace by allowing their team members to host 30-minute paid activities during the workday. And they're either doing these in the morning or in the afternoons for employees who have an opportunity to connect and to bond with one another. One worker actually gave a 20-minute yoga lesson for anyone who wanted to participate. Another one has led a poetry session where employees could share what they've written. They share their work, give each other some feedback. And then there is one client who really has a very serene space, for those employees who are looking for a quiet morning or midday break. And what they did is they dedicated an office for meditation and reading. And then the third one would be power walk and talk. This has been super popular recently. And this just gives a whole new meaning to the common phrase, walk the talk, right? And do that by taking your meetings outdoors. Enjoy that much needed fresh air and sunlight. Remember that one-on-one that we talked about in an earlier slide? Take it outdoors. And then engage your departments with lunch connections. This is another, really great thing that I have seen with some of our clients. And one in particular has a lottery for each of their departments where they send 3 to 4 individuals from different departments. And of course, those who want to participate, you don't, and you shouldn't force people to do it. But what they've done is that they send them on a sponsored lunch so that they can connect, they can get to know each other outside of the workplace. And as a result, in fact, there is one of the locations, 2 workers actually discovered that they were second cousins and have since established a beautiful relationship and made a connection between their families. So just remember that the benefits of team building activities include better communication, improved relationships, team bonds, and more effective working practices and workplace happiness. Go ahead, Gabi.
Thank you, Carmen. Next slide. So the last kind of strategy and goal we want to talk about is offering job flexibility and work-life balance. So we, kind of touched on this a little bit in part 1 as well, with the 2 kind of generations that are really making up the majority of the workforce right now, which is the millennials and the Generation X. Some of the things that they're really looking for is flexible working hours, flexible working locations, and really wanting a place that's going to support a good work-life balance. So you may be wondering, well, why is that, so important, or why all of a sudden is that such a kind of a big hot topic for people, this like work-life balance idea? And I think the reason why it's so important and people are really making sure that they are finding that in the jobs that they're applying to is that there's been just a lot more research out there. The research really shows that when someone has a healthy work-life balance, it really decreases, your overall stress. It improves your physical and mental health, and it really gives your mind the ability to be more present and giving you space to be more innovative and creative. It enhances your relationships, not only at work, but also at home. Think about like the times when, you're so stressed at home and then you come to work. I mean, it's hard to concentrate. You can have anxiety, you can have depression, or just overall just feel troubled, because things aren't going well, whether it's at work or at home. They always talk about like, don't bring work home, or if you're at the workplace, don't bring your family issues home. But we're human, so naturally those things are going to affect us. But when you give your employees the space to be able to foster a healthy home life and healthy work life, you're going to have a person coming in on Monday morning or whenever their work day starts, with a fresh attitude, feeling good, feeling like they have strong connections, which in turn, they're going to be ready to take on whatever the work week has, stressful or not. Versus if you have someone that's burnt out at home, burnt out at work, coming in, I mean, they're working on fumes. So really, what kind of work do you think that they're going to be putting out? What kind of relationships, what kind of interactions with your, clients are they going to be having if they're, always on the verge of like blowing their top because they're so stressed? So really, I mean, this is so important, not just for the employee, but for the employer. You have someone that's, ready to kind of attack the week when they have the space to enjoy their life. So Carmen's going to give us some examples of what you can do to really support your employees in having that balance and being able to not only enjoy their family, but enjoy the time that they're, working for you and working with your other employees. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. And Carmen, you could go ahead and jump in.
So we all know that it is not the sole responsibility of the employer, right, to develop a balance between work and life, but it does help when you create the space for that ability. And start off by offering some small options, such as being able to start earlier or end the workday a little bit later. Perhaps consider, can you offer both full and part-time positions? Because when you offer fewer hours, part-time employees are able to more easily find a balance between work and life and less burnout. You might also consider allowing your staff to maybe choose a schedule that works for everyone. While it does depend on the type of industry that you're in, your team can maybe work a 10-hour day so that they can have a personal day during the week. Is working from home an option, perhaps once or twice a week, right? A chosen schedule can make sure that a mother, for example, can pick up her kids from school, and completing tasks in the best order that the employee sees fit often boosts confidence and puts personal skills to use. So whenever it is that flexibility, or whatever it is that the flexibility does for the lives of employees outside of work, is something that's necessary for total balance. And healthcare and wellness plans, like Kaiser says, keep your workforce healthy and your business strong, right? So by providing your employees with healthy options and initiatives, you actually help prevent sickness, fatigue, and that mental burnout while expressing your care for the individual. So these incentives can act as team building practices and lead to a more positive company culture. Healthcare benefits are typically the first thing that comes to mind when you think about healthcare and wellness plans. However, there are other options that can contribute to a healthy workforce, especially if you're not offering 100% paid healthcare plans. So a few wellness ideas to consider would be provide a healthy snack option, that you can leave in the break room for your team, whether it's once a week or once a month, do whatever works for you. Pay for all or part of a gym membership. I have one client who pays their employees $10 a month to use towards their gym membership. Or perhaps incentives for employees who take public transportation, who walk or ride a bike to work. If they do ride a bike, is there a space when you can secure a bike rack to allow them to bring their items inside, or create a cubby area where they can leave their bike gear. And then creating ways to offer work-life balance. Finding a balance between work and personal life definitely requires creativity, but following some examples that I will share with you will definitely help you support your team, and they will thank you for it. One of the things that I find to be the most critical is create a rule regarding employees, when employees can be contacted outside of work. Now, how many of us, I'm going to raise my hand on this one, have sent an email over the weekend or a text message after hours because, quote unquote, I just have a quick question, right? Don't text or email staff during off hours, especially your hourly staff. If you must, then schedule these so that they're received when the employee starts work. Through exit interviews, I've discovered that while no one is actually saying you must reply to my texts and emails, employees do feel obligated because their boss is working, or they may be seen as non-responsive. And then encourage your team to use vacation time. Use of vacation time is a benefit. Remember, it's the reason why you offer it to your team. So limit your restrictions on when employees can take the available accrued time. For example, does your handbooks have a policy that states that vacation becomes available after 1 year of employment? If so, let's update that so that you allow them to use it as it accrues, and once they complete 90 days of employment. And then don't make the common mistake that employees, take their paid time off. When employees take their paid time off, of checking in with them during that time. Give them, all the time that they need. Create a comfortable office space. When the brain isn't focusing on the body's aches and pains from a bad chair, it is more likely to get quality work from each team member. So, organize your area with ergonomic chairs, desks, or keyboards that are going to support their well-being. And even when someone honestly enjoys his or her work, a life outside of their job is needed to stay truly healthy. Without that balance, stress and medical issues will definitely creep in. So by helping employees find their balance, companies will see the advantage on their end as well. And finally, remember that building and improving your workplace will not happen overnight. It takes a commitment to understand your current culture climate and then implement the types of strategies that will be most effective in improving the culture in your specific organization for your specific needs and team members. So as mentioned at the start, the formula for success is different for everyone. But keep in mind, building a culture of engaged, productive, and happy employees is worth the effort, and you won't regret it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Next slide. So in conclusion, as we wrap up, just kind of wanted to go over a couple of key takeaways from both part one and part two. We are in this unprecedented time of the Great Resignation. It's never happened before. We're not sure how long it's going to stay, but it's happening. And with this event happening to the workforce, a new generation has taken over, and with that, they're bringing in, these new values, new kind of goals for themselves, new expectations, and really, there's just been kind of a societal shift. And if you and your business want to be able to retain and attract this younger talent, it's going to be imperative that you make the changes to accommodate to these shifts. And Carmen said, it's not going to be overnight. We kind of shared a lot of different things. Some of them are going to be much easier to implement and much quicker to implement. But the fact that you are aware and willing to kind of grow and kind of match to where, these shifts are going, it's really going to be in your benefit and also in the benefit of your employees. So really focusing on creating a supportive environment, fostering employee relationships, promoting and supporting a healthy work-life balance, and demonstrating to your employees the value that they have to your business, it's just going to be pivotal to retain the employees and to lower your overall risk of attrition now and really for the foreseeable future. As the millennials and the Gen Xers, they're taking over, and they're taking over for a while. So, I hope that you guys have been able to find, a couple, if not many, new strategies that you can implement. Having that growth mindset is so important. It's always important to not be stagnant, to be able to move forward and take pieces from things that you learn to make your company and to make the experience of your employees better. So I hope that this was really helpful to you. And I know Carmen and I both really enjoyed presenting this to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Gabi and Carmen. Excellent, very weighty and meaty presentation. I took a lot of notes, and I'm sure that many that walk away with a lot of wonderful things. One of the things that in concluding, we're gonna have a Q&A. So I think if you have any questions, please text them to us, and we'll give the text. So we're gonna just try to conclude right on time. I know we already have one question, but I think one of our greatest assets is knowing what we don't know, understanding that there are certain things that we don't know, and identifying those. And I think today is something that really helped us. So with that, I'm going to have Mei Li, if you can ask the first question, and anyone else that wants to ask questions, please text them in.
Carmen, I think this question is mainly for you. When you were speaking on team bonding activities, can you give some examples?
Sure. Some of the examples for team bonding activities, there are some activities that could take 5 minutes and some activities that require 1 hour. There is a rope activity, for example, that employers can develop. I mean, there's so many details to it, but to give you, there are also these outdoor activities that you can do with your team. You can do scavenger hunts. And even when you are working with remote employees, recently I did have a team who did a scavenger hunt. They created a list of items, find a flower arrangement, with red flowers, or, bring a notebook with our company logo on it. I mean, some really fun things that it really got the team to get out of their seats at home, go, around their home and find these items. So those are a couple of the things that I can think of right at the top of my head. But if you would like a more solid list, you can email me and I would be happy to send you a list of various activities with the links of how to be able to implement them in your workplace. I'd be happy to do that. And I know we had some limited time today, but please reach out so that I can support you with that.
Great, Carmen. Thank you. We'll actually bring up her slide here that you could write. Those are the questions. And that's, I kind of want to conclude with that. Just a few other traits that we have done that have been very helpful, that aren't very expensive, is during either, let's say, world championships, baseball, basketball, college sports, we usually will have a pool, but it's not a betting pool. So the employer puts all the money in. We've put in $100, $200, and the employees just pick whether it's a point score or who will win. And that's very simple. They don't have to, you always get 100% because they have nothing to lose gambling. So it's just a pot that we put in, and we allow them to just pick their best team. For example, recently when the Rams won, somebody picked the team and they also picked the margin, and that's how they won. They won $200. So that's a really easy way of doing things, not too expensive depending on how big your firm is, but it's a lot of fun. I think, do we have any other? We don't have anything else. Well, great. Well, we thank you once again, Carmen. Thank you so much. You did a great job as always, and thank you for the wonderful presentation. And just we took a lot out. For those that weren't able to, we have a YouTube page which we just planted out there. We'll have this recorded tomorrow. If you want to look at the notes, want to look at the PowerPoint and see the previous one, if you didn't have that opportunity, it is being recorded. So we thank everyone for their contribution and our partners for listening, and stay tuned for May. We'll be on cybersecurity. So that's another hot topic. Have a wonderful day. Many blessings to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.